headquarters in the Wellness Center, I would just like to take a moment of silence just to recognize all the lives that we've been lost, in the past few days. And I think it's just worthy of that even before I begin my presentation. Thank you. I come before you today petitioning your approval to move funding forward for our new police headquarters and wellness center. But let me first provide your overall mission and vision for LMPD that I have. Our mission is to make Louisville one of the safest cities in the nation while partnering with our community. Our vision is to tackle and drive down violent crime, build community trust, implement effective recruitment and retention strategies, and embrace technology to assist in our policing efforts. As many cities across this nation, and we're just not exempt from that, can attest, one of the common problems facing any law enforcement agency is police facilities that have continued to operate well past their planned lifespan. For many governments, funding for new police facilities is not available or remain at the bottom of the community's long-term capital improvement plan. But we here in Louisville have a unique opportunity to use these funds that would aid in the much-needed facilities such as the headquarters. In order to provide clarity, this headquarters will provide the much-needed efficiency, proper overall supervision, along with collaboration with our federal and local partners in order to continue to move in a positive direction of a culture shift within LMPD. My goal for the department is more of an intelligence-led policing approach which focuses more on thorough investigations. We have moved away from a dragnet policing model in which we know at times had negative impact on certain underserved community members, and we can never go back to that space again. The form of policing, that form of policing model will not be embraced by this department. We have been operating well and will continue to intensify our approach on identifying those particular individuals who are drivers of crime. But we shall not go back to the approach of a dragnet model. No longer do we want to have ourselves in that position to actually further put us behind in building community trust. We have been intentional in our efforts to dismantle the solo mindset within our own agency. Each investigation unit and support unit must work together and share the much needed intelligence in order to impact criminal behavior. I believe if I aggressively challenge the solo mindset within my very own department, it will truly carry over to the willingness of my officers to collaborate with our community stakeholders. We're one Louisville. The citizens want to help us in keeping our city safe, and we need and want their help. We have been intentional about holding drivers of crime responsible while maintaining community trust. But I know, I'm very clear that we have a long way to go. I as chief must have the opportunity to see my officers, and this actual headquarters will allow me to see more of the police department than what I'm experiencing right now. The headquarters will also allow me to make those much needed adjustments in overall operations that we have. Allow me to also reiterate, this headquarters is no way overshadowing the need for our other police divisions to be in better shape. Our officers deserve that, but also too, our citizens deserve to be proud of their city and the buildings that we serve out of. We want to make sure that we are stressing today that we want a department that can work efficiently and securely and overall provide professional services to our citizens. Community policing today is different. We have to broaden our scope as to who we are actually encountering and make sure that we're in a place where we have all the tools necessary to do that. LMPD is ready for that. And I'm asking for you to make sure that you help me shift the culture of LMPD. We have grown, but yet still we have a ways to go, but we're getting there. And as you can see, my officers are here today. They're embracing it, and that's what they want. As we make every attempt to provide timely, professional, and compassionate services to the community. We understand and must be supported by focusing on the need to have truly, again, a facility, not only a headquarters, but a wellness unit. I've heard the cries of the community. I've heard their plea. They want a better officer. I understand they deserve a better officer. We consider ourselves a 21st century police department, and we must highlight the sixth pillar, and the sixth pillar is officer safety and wellness. I encourage you to understand today that our officers see things that we don't want anybody else to see. And that sometimes that is daunting in their daily tasks. It weighs on the mental, it weighs on their family. But day in and day out, they're seeing this. And if we don't address the wellness within our officers, then you will get a cynical officer. And that cynical officer will not only display attributes that is negative to the community, but it also spills over into their family. We have the highest divorce rate, suicide, and drinking among law enforcement officials. I encourage you to make sure that you continue to vote for a shift for LMPD. Our officers now are embracing the concept of wellness. They're embracing the concept of making sure that there are whole officers that they can actually provide those services to our community in which they deserve. But I want to also to present to you, I have support today. I have Officer Calhoun. If you don't mind standing up for me, sir. Officer Calhoun was not ashamed when we reached out to him to say, we know that you received quality psychological services. That's who's serving you. He benefited from actually having psychological services. We need to expand that. We need to support that. And this wellness center will provide that. It will provide psychological. It will provide financial, social, physical, spiritual. That is what that wellness center will offer. So a vote and push for us and for you to help me be more successful in shaping this department. These two things would allow me in order to continue to shape and shift the culture within LMPD. Now, Deputy Chief Humphrey will give more insight as to all of the reforms that we've already implemented within receiving some of the ARP funding and where we're going to be going next. And then followed by, after him, it will be Major Brian Elin, who's going to speak about the other portions within the Wellness Center. I thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Chief Paul Humphrey, LMPD. To reiterate what the chief said, officer physical, mental, and spiritual health is extremely important to the quality of policing that the community receives. We know that a healthy officer, both physically and mentally, is going to be better able to serve the community. The Department of Justice findings report gives recommendations on both facilities as well as wellness, total officer wellness in the findings that they have. Several other consent decrees have sections related to officer wellness where agencies are forced to address those issues because the issue of mental health for officers is one that is very, very important. It is not an individual officer's luxury. It is a necessity for the community to have a healthy, well officer policing on the street. So I want to explain to you where we are now and how the funds are a fiscally responsible and effective shift, moving them from what you may classify as police reform and how this supports the continuation of the reform process. So when we came previously last fall before last, and asked for these funds, it was strictly to focus on preparing for and respond the DOJ report, as well as responding to the Hillary Heights report and the findings of those recommendations, as well as those proactive things that we wanted to be able to do in order to support constitutional policing. That being said, this is a shift of the use of those funds from those long-term things that are ultimately going to be operational and personnel budget related expenses that are going to be continued expenses. When we came in that November, there was an understanding that those one-time funds were not going to go away. There was going to have to be a supported system over time that was going to support reform and make sure that it's sustained. We want to make sure that the system of constitutional policing and community policing is not a one-time issue, but it is a long-term protracted issue that we see as fundamental to good community policing. So, shifting those funds into the ability to invest in these capital projects that will lay the foundation for continued reform. So what we've done so far is we've changed our focus into creating capacity and structures that are going to be sustainable. So what we had to do was we had to evaluate what other agencies have done and what we need to do where we are lacking. So there were some initial capital investments that were already in progress. The changing of our CAD system, our reporting system, our records management system, so that we can accurately collect data and understand the process, what actions police are taking on the street, so that we can give proper feedback. The move over to Mark 43 was, actually went live just about 2 months ago, and we're beginning to be able to start to see the results of that data coming in. We also had to create those internal structures and job positions that were going to manage the reform process. So as part of that, we created 34 sort of professional staff positions within the agency and 6 new sworn positions within the agency. About 20 to 24 of those have been filled so far. That is an ongoing investment that is not a capital investment that has been traditionally, to this point, funded from our funds that will transition over to our operational budget. That includes things like the development or the restructuring of our training division. Our training division has been completely restructured. We have added an academic component to the training division, which has professional educators that are there to help guide us and create curricula, lesson plans, and adult-based learning plans to ensure that not only what we are teaching is the right thing, but that we are teaching it in a way that is sustainable, memorable, and reproducible for officers on the street. The entire command staff for training has been restructured. The entire sworn side of the training command staff is being restructured, as well as how the officers are expected, the instructors are expected to teach has been restructured within training. We've also created a compliance section within training to ensure that every officer in every position on the department is receiving the training that they have to have. Don't forget, as all of this, we're going to have to document and report this out, both to you, the public, so that you understand how the money is being spent and that we are dedicated to making these changes, but to the Department of Justice and ultimately a federal judge. The Performance Division is a completely new division that has been created within LMPD. So that houses our new audit unit that currently has 5 auditors. We're in the process of hiring a few more. Those audits just started in the last few months, and we're collecting that data. We're running into some technology issues, but we're working those out. We've purchased the systems. We're working with Axon as well as Mark 43, our RMS system, to overlay that data so that we can actually take that data in, process it, and reproduce it so that the public understand, as well as commanding officers are able to use that information to intervene and influence officer behavior in real time, as opposed to waiting to 6 months, a year down the road for some kind of incident to happen before we take an intervention. We want to be able to see the data of where we have room for improvement and take immediate action, and that's what that unit helps us to do. But part of that performance division also includes our performance review board that will review critical incidents for areas of improvement, our officer wellness unit that is housed within that has now a full-time peer support commander, our early intervention system, as well as full-time psychologists that we're going to be hiring, and mental health counselors, as well as our now full-time chaplain. We created an implementation unit that is a civilian unit, it's professional staff, that is going to project manage us through the entire consent decree. So they will be the ones that are going to make sure that every aspect of LMPD and every aspect of Metro government is involved and on track with meeting the elements of the decree. They will be the ones that are responsible for documenting and reproducing that to the Department of Justice. We've also created a policy feedback mechanism so that the public can go to our website, view and review our policies, and make recommendations on how the public sees the job that we do and how they think our policy should be adjusted accordingly. Our data collection process obviously was not where it should be. So we're also in the process of collecting more data, but restructuring our tech services. Those are the folks that manage both our hardware and software and our data, so that we can manage both crime data as well as compliance data to reproduce that in a way that's understandable. We've taken part in many trainings where we've either had people come in and train us. For instance, we had the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center come in and teach about 25 officers, sergeants, and lieutenants on use of force instructor principles. So that we make sure that as we teach use of force, as we investigate use of force, we get that right. We've done the same thing with our internal affairs, as well as several other trainings where we've learned from other agencies, both the pitfalls as well as the successes of the changes they've made in relation to previous decrees. At this point, we'll turn it over to Major Brian Elam, and he is going to explain the specifics on both the headquarters and the wellness unit.
Good afternoon, Brian Elam, Major of the Performance Division. You just heard Deputy Chief Humphrey kind of describe a lot of what we're doing within this Performance Division. And the most critical piece, really, for what he described as the reform efforts is officer wellness. Okay? And just for me getting up from that seat and walking up here, I'm already out of breath. So this wellness facility, one piece that we talked about, one of these 5 pillars that we refer to as wellness, is the mental piece, the physical piece, the spiritual piece, the social, and the financial. We feel if we can hit all 5 pillars, and the chief mentioned it in the 21st Century Policing Report out of President Barack Obama's office, that 6th pillar was officer wellness. We're trying to bring that to the forefront. We need whole officers, right? So the mental piece, we have hired a full-time, we're going to be hiring a full-time departmental psychologist. We're going to have 2 mental health counselors on staff. The hope is to have all 3 of those people inside this one facility. We move into the physical piece. We're going to have a full-time strength and conditioning coach on staff within this facility. The spiritual piece, you heard we have a full-time chaplain. We have several dozens of part-time chaplains across the city that volunteer their time and assist us. The full-time chaplain will also be inside this facility. The social piece is something that we want to do to bring camaraderie, family, atmosphere back to policing, okay? Within this facility, partnering with our police foundation, we hope to do marriage enrichment classes, several different community engagement activities such as teaching CPR, Stop the Bleed courses, our Police Activities League, all doing events within this facility, engaging and interacting with police. And lastly, the financial piece. We're trying to reach out to different people. We need to learn basic budgeting skills, right? We want officers from day one, before they're even a recruit, to officers at the end of their career, be prepped and ready for retirement. Prepped and ready on what debt means. Prepped and ready to plan for a family. We'll move over to that next slide there, Chief, if you don't mind. A huge piece of this facility, so we've been talking about what this facility will do. It is a 3-story facility, the wellness facility, located there at 601 President's Boulevard. The first 2 floors cover all 5 of those pillars for police and professional staff within LMPD. The 3rd floor is where Pro Team Tactical will be housed. Pro Team Tactical will service all first responders within Jefferson County, police, fire, EMS, and corrections. The 2 primary functions of Pro Team Tactical are, of course, the physical piece, and we'll get into that here in a second about the injury rehabilitation and injury prevention. But another important task they have is the mental health piece. So there'll be an app that everyone will have, every first responder that comes to this facility, and it's a mental health appraisal. You complete this questionnaire, and based on your answers, first responders will receive resources at the click of a button that we have vetted and will have at the ready, so anyone can reach out and receive the help that they need at that moment. The physical therapy piece is a massive piece of this. Protein will house 2 full-time physical therapists on staff dedicated to this facility on site, and 1 full-time strength and conditioning coach for all these first responders who are going to access this 3rd floor. Protein Tactical has proven through its time in Indianapolis that there is a reduction in lost time, in cost, and in surgeries. Surgeries, of course, keep people out for the most time. It's also the most costly for the city and for the employees. We're very proud of what Protein can do. We really hope that involving all 5 pillars for LMPD will help create what we've heard from our chief and deputy chief, a whole officer. It is our belief that if we have a whole officer and focus on those 5 pillars, it'll have a drastic impact on our relations with the community. In this time, we've heard from several different reports: the Hillary Punch report, the Department of Justice findings letter, President Obama's 21st Century report. We've heard from several different entities how important it is. We as a city, as a community, as a government, have an opportunity now to put Louisville on the forefront, on the map, and put LMPD and all first responders, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, social health, financial health, at the forefront.
Ready for questions? Councilman Hackerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but as the sponsor of this ordinance, I want to speak to it. There are folks in this room that are pro-police department. There are folks in this room that are in the middle ground. And there are folks in this room that are anti-police department. I'm not going to speak today to the pro-police department because that's like selling ice to Eskimos. But to those who are in the middle ground and those who are anti-police, I want to talk about the benefits that we will talk about today. First and foremost, the fiscal responsible person to me, dealing with city budgets for the last 15 years, knowing how tight they can be, says anytime I can spend one-time dollars, being ARP money, on capital infrastructure, that's an investment that has tenfold. Because I'm spending money that I don't have to spend next year or the year after that. So it's a great investment. I want to talk about, though, on top of this being a fiscal responsible thing to do with some of the ARP money, the reality here is this. I'm a lawyer. There's good lawyers and there's bad lawyers in this world. There's good doctors and there's bad doctors in this world. And there's good police officers and there are bad police officers in this world. No different than any other profession. And we go down the line with a zillion other professions. The DOJ has pointed out that our department has problems, serious problems. We have to address those. If we want a good police force in this city, we have to invest in it. It's not a question of punishing this police department, because there are some punishments to be had. But at the same time, we also have to invest. We have to believe. We have to want. And put our dollars behind those wants. And a police headquarters is absolutely a must. Absolutely must. If we want a quality police department, one we can be proud of, and one doesn't have the problems that are listed in the DOJ's report, a police headquarters is an absolute must. Now, I don't have all the data and all the other talking points that we talk about with the wellness center, and you know, we call it a gym wellness center. It's all of that. But the reality is, again, we have to invest not only in the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, being the police headquarters, we have to invest in these officers. If we want quality people dealing with this community, we have to empower them to do that. And that includes all the things that was discussed here about this wellness center, including everything from psychological support, physical support, to even financial support of how to deal with your, because these are all problems. Everyone has problems. You don't have to be a police officer to have financial problems or other problems. We all do. And the reality is, in this world, we all need some help. All of us need help. Everyone in this room needs help to different degrees. You may not want to admit it. They may be your little dark secrets you try to deal with. But the reality is if you reached out for some help on those issues, you would be a better person. And if we empower these officers to be able to reach out for help in all these aspects of life, they will be better officers. And that's exactly what the DOJ report is demanding. That's exactly what this community is demanding, especially the portions of this community that are anti-police are demanding that. And if any of us are going to demand it, we've got to deliver on the resources that folks can deliver, the officers can deliver on it. So, I would point to recommendation number 32 in the DOJ report, talks about the need for a police headquarters. We're following DOJ there. Recommendation 33 talks about improving officer health and wellness programs. That's exactly what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is consistent with what's in the DOJ. And I would conclude with this. God knows no one can say that Brent Ackerson is pro-cop or anti-cop. Because I have busted your all's balls at times when I thought you were wrong. I haven't defended everything you've done. Chief Conrad used to regularly take a tongue lashing from me. Mayor Fisher, you know where I stood with that. I'm telling you this, we have a new administration in town, and it's exciting for me. Mayor Greenberg has challenged this department when it comes to transparency, getting agreements worked out with the Inspector General's office so we'll have more transparency of issues. He took that upon himself. He's taken a lot of initiatives upon himself. And I choose to believe in what Mayor Greenberg's trying to do here. And I would hope that you all too would say, let's take a chance. My hope is that we will move forward with this. If there are more questions, I know that I've seen the 490 group said that they would like this tabled and they would like some questions answered. We have a lot of time between now and next Thursday. There's some serious questions that need to be answered. When it's before the council floor, it can be sent back to committee for more questions to be answered. But at this moment, I would say we should move forward with this. We should take a chance. We should believe in Mayor Greenberg's administration. We should believe in the possibilities of reform in this police department, and we should put our dollars behind that. I appreciate your support this night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I have several members who are in the queue. However, Councilman spoke to it because he is the primary sponsor. But at this point, we have 3 other speakers who are going to speak. So what I'm asking for, if you're on the queue here and you have specific questions to them about what they just presented, then I'll answer. I'll follow the queue here. But don't go into where you are, what you think about it, whatever. Don't want that at this point. We'll come back to that. But I want to get the other speakers in first before we do that. But so this is just for, I want to ask a question about where's the front entrance to the wellness center? Specific questions, all right? So, Councilman Piotr, any questions?
One question then, and then I'll come back in.
Go right back, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll come back in later to make a few points. Question is, Chief, do you see any ability to comply with the Hilliard Hines report with at least the high-level recommendations of the DOJ report? Obviously, they'll be memorialized, and we can imagine how that'll play out in the consent decree. Do you see any way to be able to comply with any of that without moving forward with these recommendations?
Yeah, it's needed. This headquarters is needed, because again, we're talking about having more of a department that is truly communicating, truly interacting, truly doing, and actually connecting within so that we can better serve the community. Technology being sound, making sure that we're actually having those truly tough conversations as to how do we move forward and to police correctly this community. It is needed, and I need for this city to have great officers. They must have great officers, and we gotta make sure those tools are there.
Yeah, and just to make sure we're clear,
Yeah.
you do believe it is critical to compliance with.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Spills over. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Chief, thank you, and thank the entire team for being here. I would like to get back in with some comments later too, but I just have a couple really quick questions. Number one, you know, I know that there's also sort of the shifting around of money that's happening here moves it from what was previously identified for auditors or other reforms to this capital. I know Assistant Chief Humphrey testified to this to an extent, but can you just reconfirm that you are committed to implementing all of the oversight changes in the DOJ report, even as we continue to work with the federal government on a consent decree, and that you're on your way to sort of put some of those things in place?
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's so needed. We have our auditors in place already, and they're doing an exceptional job. We're educating internally the officers what that means. Performance, vision, making sure they understand that even within that, even with the wellness center, having our early intervention center, understanding that our supervisors, which I'm gonna hold accountable, actually seeing exactly what your officers are doing, are there any flags that are going up that we must address? All of that is working, all of that is in play, and I'm committed in order to make sure that everything that is there that is needed to do in this department, that we proceed through, because again, we can't go back. There's not an option. If you want a progressive police department, we cannot continue to do business as usual. And my guys here, they don't want that. And I'm committed to doing that, and my executive team, we really push it forward. Yes, sir.
Chief, I'm gonna ask you a hard question, and you know, when Deputy Chief, Deputy Mayor Kaplan came a couple of weeks ago to the Committee of the Whole report and talked about the DOJ findings, I know a lot of my colleagues and a lot of members of the community have expressed outrage that some of the individuals who have been cited for some of the most egregious behavior in that report are still in force. So without getting into any specific officer, the question I have for you is, can you speak to what discipline, you talked about accountability, what plans do you have for accountability related to addressing folks that were cited for some of the most egregious behavior in that report?
Again, we're still in the review process of the DOJ findings report, and but let me also just say this, and I made a public statement before. I'm fully aware and I acknowledge that we've had some officers who truly cast a dark shadow over the badge. They harm individuals within their process of thinking they're policing whatever they thought was the right way. I acknowledge that. And with that, we're taking a deep dive into what those investigations look like. If there's anything that we need to actually review closely, then I'm committed to doing that. Because I know the community is seeking that, but also too, I must make sure that we're doing it in the right way, but not doing a knee-jerk reaction on anything, but truly looking at the report and those incidents as it is presented. And so, but yes, I acknowledge that, and I apologize for certain behaviors that have taken place before, and we're in a space now that our officers are truly aware. On me, because I am one of the community members who has been violently assaulted by officers, entrusted with trying to get to folks who they think will listen to help them for the situations that they're going through. These are our community members. And these are daily interactions that take place, whether we want to put them on record or not say that they're on record or not, right? So when we see these reports, when we read these reports, the folks in this room, including decision makers, we assume that everyone is reading these reports. And we know that that's not true. We know that that's not a realistic thing. I don't want to say it's not true. We know that that's not realistic. Everyone can't read these reports because they don't have access to them. Well, they're online, they were in the paper, they were here. Not everyone knows that access exists for them. And that's systemic. The reason I'm an abolitionist is because I believe that we can create something new, something transformative that sees all of us. And just like the access that I just talked about, there are also young people who should be able to look up to you all in different positions, wherever you are. I want to make sure I'm making eye contact with everybody. Because they should know that these positions and these situations, these meetings and these places exist. And they should be accessible to them. All of them. Regardless of where they live, what they eat, what school they go to, how many cars they mama got, it doesn't matter. I have a few children who cannot enter this room because they are fearful. And I'm trying to keep it together for them. They are fearful. And the type of fear that they have in them right now, it should not exist for any child.
Arcade, etc. And my parents don't feel like driving 20 to 30 minutes just to get to an arcade or the movies because they're all the way out. And even if there was a movies or arcade, we wouldn't have to worry about that. 17.5 million can save lives, and also 17.5.
By spending nearly all of the funds, $15 million on a singular building. In light of the DOJ report and the impending consent decree, any money spent on LMPD going forward should be thoroughly vetted by the public. And I don't mean a conversation between the mayor and this body, but the general public. Well, I'm grateful that you've given us a chance to speak here today.
If you do nothing else.
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 If you do nothing